Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Civic Auditorium. My name is Corey McCandless. I'm the general manager here. A few months ago, I got a phone call about an urgent need. They said, hey, can we do an event at your place like the next day? And this was the day before the event that happened at Sequoia Middle School. And I really wanted to. We had a customer here. And so it's really fun that now, 2 or 3 months later, here you are, and here we are to talk about our city. And so we love, from me and my staff, we love having an event like this here. And so I'd like to get the evening started with the Safe City Project by introducing to you April LaFrance.
Thank you all so much for coming tonight. Wow, we have a very full house. Thank you for coming out. I wanted to start out by just gaining a little bit of information about the room and your history in Reading. So if you've been in Reading for at least 5 years, if you could raise your hand. Okay, how about those of you who have lived in Reading for at least 10 years, and if you left and came back, that's okay, 10 years. Okay, how about 20 years invested in Reading? Okay, wow, thank you. Anyone who has been in Reading for 30 or more years, could you stand? Thank you for choosing this city. Thank you for investing in this city. I've grown to love it very much. So just to give you a little information, the news channel put that I had lived here for 3 years, close. I've lived in Reading for 5 years, so it's only 2 years difference, but I think it earns me a little more credibility. I'd like to thank everyone, to start, who participated in the Safe City Project. Reading City Council members and staff, Shasta County supervisors and staff, county courts and probation, Sheriff's Department, Sheriff Visenko, and law enforcement of multiple agencies, and I especially want to thank the Chief of Police, Robert Paletti, for all his support through this project. Also could definitely have not done this without the incredible team that I have been working with for the past 3 months. You know who you are, brilliant and hardworking, also fun. Thank you. Thank you for what you've invested for our city. Lastly, I want to thank the Shark Tank of community advisors. These are people who we brought solutions to, and they could say yes, no, maybe, or you need to do more work. Those people are Ed Rollman with Best Western Hilltop and C.R. Gibbs. And Merchants Crime Watch also. He was sort of our business mind from the community that we could bounce ideas off of. Also want to thank Mike Dahl, former mayor of Reading. He was the one that helped us understand the political mindset and advised us in that direction. And then I also want to take a moment to thank, we wanted someone who represented a citizen who was very engaged in caring about reducing crime in the city, and for that we chose Jason Schroeder of Stand Up Reading. Okay, just a couple of quick notes and then we're going to get going, I promise. On filming and media coverage, I know that there's some media here that's here tonight. We are going to be showing a 4-minute documentary style film towards the end of the evening, and I'm going to ask that you turn your cameras off during that period of time. That's something that we want to share with the people that have gathered tonight, but we don't actually want that getting on YouTube. Okay, so just to protect some privacy beyond the room tonight, I'm going to ask you to shut your cameras off for that. I'm also going to ask you to feel free to be an enthusiastic crowd. We have a good start. Yeah. Also going to ask you to be respectful. I think you will be, but let me just put that kind of at the front. There are some things we're going to talk about tonight that are controversial. And so you may not agree with everything that we're going to say. Hopefully you'll agree with something and you'll find something to say yes to. But just going to ask that if you aren't in huge support of something, could you keep your thoughts to yourself during the event? Thank you. Okay. So most of us in this room tonight have gathered because we are frustrated with crime. I also believe that we came together for another reason. The commonality that drew probably 1,000 of us here tonight is because we all believe that Reading is valuable. We're here because we love a city, and because Redding, California is our city. And in one way or another, we've all come to realize that the city we care about is in trouble. Like many of you, my family and my businesses have suffered from several thefts over the past couple of years. Although upsetting, frustrating, and costly, I hoped to move on with my life while someone else addressed our issues with crime. I didn't feel like I personally had a role to play in making my city safer, nor did I go seeking one. But it became very difficult to avoid the issue of crime in Reading. It seemed to be all around me, all around us. I started to think, what would I do if one of my businesses kept running into a problem like this? Struggling over an important issue like Reading struggling with crime. Well, I would assess the problem and then use all of my talents, strengths, find the resources and the money to resolve the issue to strengthen my company, because my companies are really valuable. So the idea started to brew that what if we got together a group of intelligent citizens who took the time, the energy, the talents that we usually pour into our own businesses and our own lives, and what if we pointed that energy at the city of Reading? What if we as citizens actually had the power, the solutions, and the influence to improve the place that we live? Weeks later, on August 5th, just 3 months ago, I was pitching the idea now called the Safe City Project to the Reading City Council. And thankfully, there was a unanimous decision to endorse the Safe City Project and also to come here tonight to hear our solutions. Thank you for that endorsement. And to follow through, I had promised the City Council that our team would invest hundreds of volunteer hours into this project, and that's not exactly accurate. We went beyond hundreds. We reached 1,077 hours of volunteer time to produce what you're about to experience tonight. So I do want to let you know that no one on my team is an employee of the Reading Police Department. No one on my team is an employee of the city of Reading. This project was not done for any financial gain or because any of us are running for a political office. We also didn't take this on because we were bored. In speaking for myself and the team, I'd like to say that we really didn't have much to gain other than a better city to live in. We interviewed over 40 community leaders, everyone from the city manager to the director of the Good News Rescue Mission, from the president of the Chamber of Commerce to meeting with recovering addicts who've lived on the streets. Our team's been on ride-alongs with the Reading Police Department, toured the Shasta County Jail, that was not fun, and visited some homeless encampments and toured drug and alcohol rehab programs. Let's just say we did a lot of homework to prepare for tonight. Let me describe an analogy of what this crime issue has started to look like for me. Here's the Reading that we're currently experiencing in 2014. It's the Reading that's got the bad press lately for the spike in violent crime, crimes against women, and a really bad scoring on well-being. And then there's the Reading that many of us know is very possible, a great place to call home. So in this analogy, imagine that crime is like a huge boulder that's anchored on the path in between our existing circumstances and the city we have the potential to experience. Now, I heard firsthand from many community leaders, many of you in this room, a lot of information about how big that boulder is, how it got there, how long it's been there, how heavy it is, and how it would cost way too much money to move it. The role of the Safe City Project has been to listen really well, to acknowledge that the boulder does truly exist, but then either find an access around it, build a catapult to get over it, find something strong enough to smash it, get shovels and dig a tunnel under it, or get enough passionate people to push on it at the same time until that thing moves. Because one way or another, this strong community is going to reduce crime and build this city once again. There's a great quote by Edmund Burke that says, "All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing." Reading, as a city, our goal should be that within the next 5 years, as our community goes after crime and rebuilds our city, that Redding, California would be named in the top 5 most livable cities of our size. We need to feel hope in order to say yes to a better future. So, City of Redding, what is our yes for this city? Find out what your individual yes is for Redding's future. Perhaps it's, yes, we want to be known for hundreds of miles of the best trails. Yes, we have pristine fishing in our rivers and lakes. Yes, we have a fantastic place to raise children, to start a business, and to retire. Yes, Redding is celebrated for great restaurants and renowned chefs. Yes, our city will be known for top-notch medical care. What is your passion as a citizen? And what if you pour your energy into building that passion for this city? I want you to take a moment and glance around the room. Truly, like, move your heads. Look at the people around you. Because much of Redding's bright future, its solutions, its greatest achievements are in the people around you tonight. City of Redding, we are a powerful community. So regardless of how much hope you came into the room with tonight, I'm going to ask that you choose to believe that Redding has the potential to be great. Believe that our city is worth rebuilding, worth protecting, worth investing in. Whether your family has been here for generations, like many of you, or if you just moved to Redding within the last year, we all have choices of where we're going to call home, and Redding is ours. It's ours. And this is our city. So let's get ready to hear some ways we can rebuild it tonight. Okay, all right, ready? You ready? I've been holding these things secrets for 3 months. I'm so excited to finally get to share them with you. Okay, so we have a few different sections that we've sort of grouped our solutions in. Oh, by the way, I said 10 solutions. Well, we could not let go of the 11th one. So we're actually going to go with 11 solutions tonight, where you get a bonus one. Our first area to cover tonight is stopping active crime. This one is our biggest area. We have 5 solutions within it. First up to speak, I would like to introduce Chad Russell. Please give him a round of applause.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chad Russell, and I'm a graduate of Enterprise High School. I'm a retired police detective from Las Vegas. I'm a local business owner, but more importantly, I'm a resident of this great city. When I retired from the police department last year, my wife and I had dreams of moving back to the city where I grew up and where we as a family had spent most of our summer and winter vacations. A city that had just enough of that small town feel with just enough big town amenities. When I left, crime in Redding was minimal and rarely made the nightly news. After moving back here, I quickly learned that the Reading I left 23 years ago was not the Reading that I had returned to. We've become overrun by a growing homeless population, increased violent crime, and certain public places are no longer safe to visit. Places like Caldwell Park, the Sacramento River Trail, heck, even the Movies 14 parking lot, few people feel safe just going there. So how did this happen? What happened to my city with the small town feel and low crime? Well, we grew. Laws changed. AB 109 happened. A recession hit. Even criminals like to live where the weather is nice. The problem is our tax base and our police department funding hasn't grown as fast as our crime problem. What does all that mean for law enforcement? Well, I'll tell you from my own personal experience. In June of last year, I considered coming to work for RPD after retiring from Las Vegas. As part of my research, I requested and was granted a ride-along with the Reading Police Department. The officer I was assigned to work with, very knowledgeable guy. He'd previously worked for the California Highway Patrol. And as we were driving around, I asked him, I said, Mike, how many other units are we working with right now? And he replied, 7. And I said, no, not just on your squad, but how many total? And again, he said 7 for the entire city on a swing shift, covering 60 square miles. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That is the average number of patrol officers working and protecting this city on any given shift, 7, and they're covering 60 square miles between them. Now, depending on what type of crime has just occurred or is still occurring, it is very possible that every single officer could be tied up on the exact same call for hours, all of them. So let me put this in my perspective. I retired from an agency with over 2,500 sworn police officers that patrolled an area just a little over twice the geographical size of Reading. So if my city had been cut down to the same size as Reading, they would still have around 1,200 officers. But in reality, Reading doesn't have anywhere near 1,200 officers. We have, wait for it, 98. 98 officers, but it gets worse. This 98 includes the chief, 2 captains, 4 lieutenants, and 13 sergeants. Basically, the leadership of the department. So now that puts us at 78. But it gets worse yet. Now you need to take away from that number another 12 positions for various reasons, including medical, injuries. Now you're actually left with 66 officers. 66 officers to conduct patrol operations, investigations, taking reports, evidence gathering, handling the transients. Essentially, all the jobs that we ask our police department to do are being done by 66 officers. Now, according to governing.com, in 2012, police departments serving cities with more than 50,000 residents employed an average of 1.7 officers per 1,000 residents. 1.7 per 1,000. So let's take a look at that. Reading's daytime population, we swell up to about 120,000. Our nighttime population, or sleeping population, is right around 91,000. So our average 24-hour period population comes out to about 105,500. This puts Reading at 0.93 officers per 1,000 people. Now that's 0.93 using the figure of 98, not the figure of 66. Either way, that's a far cry from the national average of 1.7 officers per 1,000 for cities our size. For those doing the math in their head, we would need to be at about 180 officers to meet the national average. If you remember one thing tonight, remember this. Our police department needs more people. The problem is, people cost money. Well, most people. The members of the Safe City Project Committee would like to introduce to you the Reading Reserve Police Officer Program. A reserve police officer program is not a new concept. In fact, there's an entire California association dedicated to these heroes, the California Reserve Peace Officers Association. Now, there's been a lot of talk and rumor lately about an auxiliary police officer program. I've heard everything from ordinary untrained citizens out on patrol to citizens simply taking low-risk reports. What the Safe City Project Committee would like to present for your consideration this evening is something different. It's a reserve officer program made up of retired or prior service officers or police academy graduates that would like to give back to the community in which they serve. Many consider Reading a great place to work and retire, and law enforcement officers are no exception to that rule. With the input of Chief Paletti and the Reading Police Department, the Safe City Project Committee would like to help implement a reserve officer program whereby qualified, trained individuals would act as a second officer or backup officer for regular officers out on patrol. Not only do reserve police officers add another set of eyes to help see, another set of feet to help chase, and another set of hands to help fight, but they add an increased level of safety that Reading police officers do not currently enjoy. Most of our officers patrol alone, so when a call comes out that requires more than one officer, it takes yet another patrol car out of our neighborhoods and off our streets. The hope is that by adding a reserve police officer, we can keep our law enforcement assets where we need them, patrolling our streets, and give RPD more personnel to focus on proactive law enforcement activities instead of the call-to-call reactive mode under which they operate now. Now, I don't want to mislead you. This proposed project would not be free. Personnel are just one piece of the puzzle. Allocations and funding would still be needed for uniforms, equipment, and training, albeit it does put additional personnel out on the street at a much lower cost. I want to close with this. In all my years of public service, I have never seen a police department as understaffed as RPD is right now. And I would personally like to thank and commend the Reading Police Department for the job that they do with the number of people that they have. Let's get them some help. Thank you.
Hello, Reading. How you doing? I'm Jason Schroeder, stand-up Reading. I'm very nervous. I'll give you a little bit of background on myself. My grandfather actually grew up on J Street on the west side, about half a block from where I live now. I grew up in San Jose. I've been here for 16 years. They're having fun back there. So our story started basically, we've had some ongoing issues on the west side of town, as a lot of you west siders know. December 31st of last year, we had an incident that kind of got the ball rolling for stand-up Reading. So my wife, who is over here with my two boys, were getting in the car on New Year's Eve, and I got a call from at my shop, and she said a girl had run across the street in tears and had said that she had been held for a week, locked in a room, and prostituted. And this was at an apartment complex right across the street. You could see out our window. It was startling, to say the least, to have it that close. I have a 15-year-old daughter. It was very concerning. A couple months later, my next-door neighbor, who was a single mom, and walked into her house with her 4-year-old daughter, and there was a gentleman in her living room with a pillowcase full of her belongings. She had to chase this gentleman out, and he went right across the street to where he was staying at the apartment complex across the street. So things were getting very close. We knew that there was crime. It was startling to know that there was some trafficking going on and, burglaries happening right there. So we kind of got the group together. We started knocking on doors and started going around, and that's kind of the foundation of what I'm going to talk to you about of my solutions here, which is what strategies did we use to get rid of these offenders in our neighborhood. So the first thing that we started doing is taking walks, getting to know the neighbors who normally we would just wave to, and started asking questions and seeing how they were doing. Is this an isolated thing? Are we the only ones feeling this? Is this just at our end of the block? And everyone had a story. There are people here, every person in this room probably has a story that's been impacted in some way. We just had a very high concentration in our area. So we started with about 12 neighbors, and RPD was there at the first meeting, and David Kehoe, county supervisor, who lives a block over, and we started strategizing on what we could do. And the big thing is everybody knows about the limitations of law enforcement at the moment, and we realized that very quickly when we had these many issues going on. And we started asking ourselves, what things can we control and what can we not control? And we need to focus on the assets that we have in our community. And we need to understand the crime that's going on all around us. And so, in talking to the chief, there are a couple of different crime triangles. So that became, that became the foundation. A rehearsal is over there, I swear. This became the foundation of what we could control and what we couldn't. It's very difficult to control an offender here. So basically, let me back up. There are three things that need to occur, that need to be in place for a crime to occur. You need an offender, a victim or a target, and you need a place for that crime. The things on the outside of that crime triangle are the things that can protect the others or control the others. So the offender part is very difficult to control, especially if somebody's addicted. They're going to steal from you so that they can go get high, and that's the process of somebody who is addicted. That's a large part of why we're seeing so many property crimes and other things. So that leaves the other two, and that's what I'm going to focus on right now, and that just so happens to be what we focused on. So the first part of it is being better guardians for the targets and the victims, their potential victims. And that's huge. That's the foundation for everything. That's why you're all here. And then the second one is increasing proper management and responsibility at the places where crimes occur and where they're headquartered. So those are the two things that we're going to talk about as solutions. So I'm going to skip ahead here and just talk about, on a scale of 1 to 10, if you think about your neighborhood, when you go to sleep at night, and this is going to probably depend on where your neighborhood is, but on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the safest, how safe do you feel at night? So by a show of hands or yelling and screaming, how many people feel very safe and are between about an 8 and a 10 on the safety meter? Make some noise if you feel that way. I want to live in your neighborhood. Okay, that's great. How many people feel moderately in danger in the middle, 4 to 7? Make a little bit of noise. Okay, about equal number, but a little more passionate. That's good. And how many people feel vulnerable, like a crime could happen at any moment? Okay, West Side folks like me, downtown folks like me. So just so you know, for perspective, I live on Olive Avenue on the west side, just so you know. Okay, now how about in this room? How safe do you feel in this room? How many people feel vulnerable in this room, 1 to 3? How many people feel between 4 and 7 on our safety meter in this room? And how many people feel very safe in this room right now? We need to figure out how to increase our guardianship so that we can feel this way when we go to sleep at night and get back to that small town feel. And we're not a small town anymore, but we can feel that way if we do this on a local level, on a neighborhood basis. And that's what I'm asking you all to do. So, a couple of examples of what guardianship means to me and what we have done in our neighborhood is starting out with everybody knows by now that you cannot leave your car running so your air conditioning's on when you go into Target, okay? Everybody realizes it. Nobody's doing that anymore, right? Okay. We can't do that anymore. We have big town issues. Your car will not be there when you get back. So everybody understands their own property and their own stuff and their own guardianship. So but we have to start looking across the street. We have to start looking over the sidewalk instead of thinking my responsibility ends here, and start looking across the street and making sure that people get home from work. And making sure that kids are safe in the streets. And that the elderly lady down the street is feeling secure and okay. And so those are the type of things that we're asking for as the basis for this community. So some of the things that we've done in our neighborhood, at the height of us fighting the offenders in our neighborhood, there was a woman who was receiving threats. So one example of guardianship, there are people in this room who offered to be part of what's called a block walk crew. And it was something we threw together in about 5 minutes, where someone approached me, because I'm the block captain, and said, I'm feeling threatened by some really dangerous guys. And I don't know what to do, because RPD can't be there 24/7. But we can. We're right up the street. So what we did is we generated a quick text list for her. If she felt in danger, she could send out a text to 12 guys. And that we would all be there to have a presence if she felt threatened. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about. We also had a neighbor who got her car stolen. She wakes up in the morning, go to work, and walks to her car part. Her car's gone. You know, it's just a startling thing. So she reported it on our nextdoor.com site, which I hope you all are getting involved in some form of communication online. Write it down, nextdoor.com, and establish your neighborhood. So she reported it to us. The neighborhood put it out to social media. And within a couple of days, we got a message on Facebook that basically said someone saw the car in the McConnell Foundation parking lot, and you're not supposed to park there overnight, apparently. So we got the call. The car was returned to her. I think she was a little bit bummed because she had a good insurance, but she got her car back. And that's the kind of thing is a lot of people would say, it's not my car. I'm not worried about it. I got to get back to my stuff. But we can't do that anymore. Especially right now. This is a critical time for us. So that's what I mean by increasing the guardianship of our neighbors. The second part of it is doing a better job of controlling the places where crime occurs. And this ended up being a surprising, empowering piece of the whole equation. Is if you can control the places where people do crime or headquarter their crime. You know the garages where there's all kinds of new bikes coming in and out all day, and bikes and backpacks. That seems to be the mode of transportation, right? So whatever it happens to be, not all people with bikes and backpacks are criminals, but you know the houses that I'm talking about, though. And so the first thing that I think everybody has done it. Everybody knows, especially if you're in that 1 to 3 or 4 to 7 group on the safety meter, you know what houses are problems. You know which ones are the troubled properties. And my vision is to make aware, as a first step, these property owners who sometimes live in San Jose, they live in the Bay Area, they live in Oregon, they live back east, and they own property here. And the people are allowed to live there and conduct business there that is terrorizing our community. And it's time we hold them accountable. And there are ways that we can do that. So that really became the foundation of so many of the offenders and getting them out of our neighborhood. And I was just talking to the chief as I reviewed this. We're kind of out of bad guys in our section of the neighborhood. It's fantastic. So, yes, thank you. It's been an excellent team effort. So the way that this works is that there are laws. Doug Wright, Attorney Doug Wright, right here will tell you that there are laws on the books that explain that a property owner is liable for the activities that go on their property. So the first thing that I want us all to do is when you have that troubled property, the worst one in your neighborhood, pick one to start. And I want you to contact the owner and invite him into this conversation. They should be at this meeting. It shouldn't just be about collecting rent checks. And so the conversation usually goes one of two ways, is what I have found. There are those property owners that may not be aware of problems at their property. And you'll call them and you'll talk to them and they'll say, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm going to be right there. I'll be there this afternoon. And they start taking care of the problem. They issue warnings to their tenants. And then there's the other part. There's a whole other group, and let's see. I'll share with you some of the things that have been told to me. Why don't you put a sign in your lawn and move if you don't like my tenant? That's a fun one. I'm not my tenant's mother. And my favorite is call RPD, it's not my problem. But I think what you all need to know is it is their problem. And we need to make them be responsible property owners. And so if a nice letter or a nice phone call doesn't work, we need to step up and go to the next level, which we have had to do on numerous occasions. And that requires writing a nice letter and explaining this is what your tenants are doing, and this is how it's affecting our neighborhood and our community. And if that doesn't work, it gets a little nastier. And if that doesn't work, you hire an attorney, and that's, or you don't, you go through the civil process through small claims court, but we need to start holding these property managers accountable. So, thank you. We are working right now on the website at Reading Crime Watch to give basically a guide on how to report properties, how to write the letters, and a frequently asked questions section of the site so that we can walk you through exactly what you do. Because so many times it's like, yeah, I know that there's drug activity going on there, or there's stolen property going on, or there's potential trafficking going on there, but I don't know what to do. We're going to help you do that through Reading Crime Watch. So Matt Morgan and I have been talking. We're getting it together. He just built the Reading Police Department website, and he's doing so much great work, so we're a little bit behind on that. But we are going to do that, and it's going to be a lot easier for you guys to start holding these property managers accountable. So there are a couple other things that I want to emphasize, and that is that the remedies that I'm talking about right now are not, well, actually, can we go to the table just to show? I know it's a little bit difficult to see, but this is the fate of the worst offenders, and this is just people who are on our block, literally between Placer and Butte Street over the last 12 months. So we had the traffickers who we worked with RPD and FBI, and we were reporting, and they were building their case, and while they're building their case, they were evicted by us working through the property manager and us documenting. They got essentially evicted on a technicality because the pimp wasn't on the lease. So they were asked to leave, and they left. They didn't put up a fight. I don't think they didn't want to fight that in court. So we've had heroin and drug dealers, same thing. They got evicted on a technicality. They had too many visitors. Their drug buyers were coming in 20 and 30 cars a day to come and buy their drugs. They got evicted for too many visitors. So you can see that the property management side of things is a very powerful tool that not enough people are using to control the crime in their neighborhoods. By the way, the sex traffickers are incarcerated on $1 million bail apiece. There are a couple other, the burglar drug addict. This is the guy who walked into my next door neighbor's house and robbed her in front of her four-year-old daughter. He's in jail for 14 years right now. He's in a state prison. The last guy that got picked up through Shasta County's Most Wanted is also incarcerated in state prison. So this works. It's not like we're just getting them out and getting them into your neighborhoods. They are eventually getting caught. It just takes a little bit for the cases to be built and for these guys to get caught. So this is a cooperative effort. This isn't to replace police work. This isn't to replace city codes or anything like that. This is a cooperative between the neighborhoods and the city, and Kurt Starman and Chief Paletti and I have strategy meetings with other business owners, and Sam Allen and Ed Rollman and Mike Dahl and Doug Wright, we get together once a month to talk about how we can hit these things head on. And I know code enforcement has been a frustration for a lot of people in neighborhoods because there just hasn't been enough staff. Well, one of the things that's come out of these strategy meetings is that the city manager and the chief requested of city council to have money allotted for additional code enforcement people, and they've just allocated the money to do that, and it was voted 5-0 to get code enforcement beefed up so that we can also address some of these problems. They're listening, and this is what happens when we cooperate. So, cooperation is the key. I don't think this is a time for heroes. This is about community and citizenship and guardianship of our city and of our neighbors, and especially the most vulnerable. And it's really not about the attendance, even though this is fantastic. I love seeing this many people, and I love that we had to move it. And Safe City Project has done an amazing job, and thank you for putting this on. But I want to say it's really about what you guys do when you get home. It's about what you do in between these meetings, and then you can come report back about all the good stuff that you've done. So we started Stand Up Reading with about 15 people, and it's sort of becoming a movement. And people are standing up. And it's changed the conversation from no one's doing anything about this to a question of what can we do to help us get there. This is your call to action. So I want to formally welcome you and your neighborhood to Stand Up Reading. And I'm sure Ed would welcome you into Reading Merchants Crime Watch as well if you're a business. And as a gesture of solidarity, if you're active in a neighborhood group right now, would you mind standing up? Stay standing. If you're going to join a neighborhood group tomorrow, would you please stand up? Stay standing, please. If anybody else is going to join a neighborhood group or has interest, please stand up with us. And for the people sitting down, if you could all just invite them to stand up with us, because this is what it's all about. We welcome you to stand up to take back our city. Thank you very much.
Evening, Reading. How y'all doing? Had a good stretch of your legs there? All right. My name's Eric, and like you, I'm a citizen of this city, and I love Reading. For most of us, our homes are not only our favorite place to be, but they're also our most valuable investment. But many people have felt the anguish that Jason was talking about, of sharing their street with either a rental house that functions as drug dealer headquarters or a bank-owned property that's now housing squatters. Or perhaps transient people have set up a camp in a greenbelt nearby your house. These situations drive down property values, and they create a launching pad for those bad guys to do bad things. Similarly, we really want tourism to flourish in Reading. We need this income, and we're spending a lot of money to brand our city as a great place to visit, and it is a great place to visit. But today, there are a number of old, run-down motels and hotels undermining our tourist value and safety because many of them have become the crime command centers, that place in that crime triangle that Jason mentioned. These hotels hurt other businesses and reduce tourism dollars by creating a haven for crime, including drug and sex trafficking. Police will tell you that the busiest areas for arrests are the streets with these motels. The owners of these homes and hotels need to take responsibility and clean this up. It's gotta stop. We need to increase, therefore, the accountability for home and business owners who knowingly or unknowingly house crime in the city, profiting off the rent from these criminals. And we know how to do this, and the city has the tools. It's called code enforcement. The local Merchants Crime Watch, which has around 500 business members, has been for some time asking the city of Reading for more code enforcement because the city currently only has 2 full-time and 1 part-time staff in code enforcement to crack down on these troubling businesses and homes. but there are way too many requests to enforce for those folks. Now, there's good news. 9 days ago, the Reading City Council unanimously approved City Manager Starman's request for a temporary 6-month budget boost, paying for 2 more employees to work in the Code Enforcement Department. Now, we applaud this staffing surge, but more must be done to return our neighborhoods and our business areas to safety. But city funds for more permanent inspectors are a little hard to find. Furthermore, some have questioned the efficiency and effectiveness of the team currently tasked with inspecting and enforcing these crucial building codes. If this is true, it must change. Reading deserves the best public service possible. So the third Safe City solution we're presenting to you tonight is to enact a stricter accountability system for our hotels, commercial buildings, and troubled residential properties, along with a better reporting tool for its citizens. This solution would combine a surge of code enforcement activities with a new sliding scale of fines based on the type of property and the number of calls for service. First, we propose creating a new online code enforcement reporting tool, website, enabling folks to quickly alert city officials when houses or apartments have code violations. These requests would have a guaranteed 1 business day response time with a tracking number, which would allow the reporting citizen to know when the inspection occurred and what the result was. A much faster response than we currently receive. If this level of activity is out of the range possible with even our bigger code enforcement team, we suggest exploring the option implemented by the city of Irving, Texas. They trained and utilized volunteers as code enforcement cadets in their neighborhoods to great effect at a very low cost. And if Texas can do it, so can we. This model is worth exploring. But that's just the inspection process. Consequences would be different too. Today, in our residential neighborhoods, if a home or an apartment building receives a complaint about a code violation, such as people using a backyard shed or a trailer as a residence, or some of these scary, hairier ones that Jason was talking about, code enforcement performs the inspection, and if it's true, the first violation of, say, that habited shed would incur a fine of $275. We're not proposing a change to the inspection process, save the online reporting tool. In our hotel areas, however, we are proposing something a little different. We propose that every Reading hotel and motel receive a semi-annual inspection, ensuring that properties meet state and local codes already in place. Also, just like residential code violations, these results will be posted online to demonstrate both the outcomes and the timeliness of the inspection to our city, bridging the communication gap between citizen and public servant. But that's just the start. If a violation is found, whether it's a commercial or a residential space, the assessed fine wouldn't just be the standard small fine for that illegal shed or the hotel's broken window. Instead, the fine would be based on how many calls for service, for public service from the police, were made in connection with that building. The more calls for service, the higher level of rating on a scale from 1 to 4. So here's how that works. A broken window violation at a hotel with a code for service rating of a 1 would be fined only $270. That's the current amount for the first time violation. But a broken window violation at a level 4 property, a property with many calls for service in the prior 6-month period, would be more like $2,500. That'll send a pretty powerful message to the owner of the hotel or the home that their business model is hurting others, and they need to either become a good neighbor and clean it up, or they should sell the property and conduct business elsewhere. Furthermore, these increased fines could be used to fund the new code enforcement positions for longer than the current surge term of 6 months already approved by our council. Now, how's this worked before? Yeah, it has. The sliding scale-based accountability program has been implemented in other cities with great success. Chula Vista, California, our neighbors down south, they applied this strategy in 2006, and calls for service to their motels declined by 49%. Yeah. Specifically, violent crimes and crimes against persons at motels declined by 49%, and drug arrests at motels declined by 66%. It made a big difference. The quality and appearance of several hotels improved dramatically, and the aggregate tourism tax reported to the city increased substantially. Bottom line was, with this program, they got less crime, more tourism, a bigger tax base, and most importantly, a safer city. We believe this would be a fairly simple program to launch in a reasonable time frame with quick and measurable results. Reading deserves it. Our homes and our business, they would prosper with it, and our families need it. Strengthened code enforcement would lead to a stronger, safer city. Thank you.
My name is Christian, and I am a citizen of Reading. I'd like to talk about another area where people in our city feel unsafe. It's being around those who are seriously under the influence of illegal drugs or alcohol. Some of us may feel compassion, while others feel frustration, anger, or even fear. When folks are publicly intoxicated, they may use obscene language and have unnerving outbursts and erratic behavior. These behaviors have become far too common in our public spaces, making some of our favorite places in town feel unsafe to the rest of us. Our peace officers are tasked with moving along offenders, redirecting and arresting chronic drug and alcohol users when they're in Reading's public parks and shopping areas. But currently, the police are hamstrung in their ability to address this problem. Conventional arrest and jailing of intoxicated offenders is bottlenecked. It takes too much time per arrestee, and there's not enough room to hold them in our jail for a substantial sobering period. According to the Shasta County Sheriff's Office, the Reading Police Department arrested 1,200 people in 2013 for being drunk in public. That's 1,200 arrests with 1,200 trips to the Shasta County Jail, some of those leading to trips to our local hospital emergency departments. From arrest to drop off at the county jail, it can take an officer hours to perform all of the required protocols and procedures to arrest and jail even a compliant inebriated offender who's often a frequent flyer. And those are the good cases. Individuals picked up for severe public intoxication or substance abuse may demonstrate symptoms, they pose a risk of suffering severe medical consequences of their condition, and an officer may spend the better part of his or her evening, especially on the weekends when crime occurs the most, completing the needed medical and documentation checks prior to returning to the beat. Placing intoxicated offenders down the same arrest and jailing process puts a significant burden on the officer's time, the jailing facility, and may require the use of emergency medical services. Processing these offenders like this is trying to cram a round peg into a square hole. It just doesn't fit. Many inebriated offenders are released from jail within hours due to the overcrowding. These low-level criminals are released back onto Reading streets, still riding the same high that warranted their arrest in the first place. We need an alternate route for these folks to free our police up to getting back to protecting our city and keep our jail space designated for more serious criminals. We also need a hub for resources and relationships to help addicted offenders to break the cycle of addiction. What Reading needs is a sobering center. A sobering center is a legal alternative to jail. This is a low-cost option to create more beds to get offenders off our streets while directing them to rehab. Here's how it would work. John Doe is stopped by RPD while harassing passersby in downtown Reading on a Friday night. RPD takes our frequent flyer to the sobering center instead of the Shasta County Jail because he is clearly under the influence, but he's not violent or aggressive. For our cops to drop someone off at the sobering center, it would take 30 to 45 minutes instead of a minimum 2-hour booking time at the jail. Once dropped off at the sobering center, John is processed, booked, and housed at the center. He's given a safe place to sleep during the sobering phase, if it's late at night. His stay varies depending on his condition, but most often a handful of hours. The cop who dropped him off is quickly back on the streets doing his job. The efficient process saves hours, dollars, and morale for the officers. It also reduces the crowding issue at our jail. The sobering center also meets the needs of supervised detox. Substance abusers would receive standby medical attention if needed, rather than costly services through expensive emergency departments. This results in a major savings to our community as a whole. Lastly, this type of facility is ideal for offering rehabilitative services to our citizens who need it the most. The sobering center serves as an intersection point between the criminal justice system, healthcare providers, and other social service and community organizations. After their holding time, individuals at the center would be given vital connections to resources they'll need to move beyond substance dependence. We already have a successful drug and alcohol rehab program in our community, and the sobering center would give chronic abusers a face-to-face opportunity to connect with others and choose recovery, a real chance of making a lasting life change. This type of facility is surprisingly realistic and feasible. The sobering center model can run with a high level of efficiency with limited staffing. Some facilities have a team of interdisciplinary staff, including full or part-time EMTs, while others, such as Recovery in Santa Barbara, has only one staff per shift for their 8-bed center. We think Redding could operate at a similar size. We propose that the city of Redding create a request for proposal for organizations interested in operating in Redding, one which would only take Shasta County arrestees. We suggest that as an incentive, the city of Redding offer a one-time startup award of $250,000 from the general fund reserves to be made available to the winning social service bidder who provides an accompanying plan to support the ongoing costs for the sobering center. The sobering center would most certainly save Redding money. One particular center in Houston, for example, estimates that its center will reduce its intoxication-related costs by more than 50%. That amounted to a savings of $2.5 million for them. In San Antonio, in the first year alone, the sobering center led to a $6 million in cost savings. After 3 years, the total cost savings from reduced jail time, reduced hospitalizations, and other sources stretched to over $25 million. A 2012-2013 study of sobering centers by Marin County put it this way: in the absence of a sobering center, such individuals are picked up by law enforcement for petty public intoxication or end up in an emergency hospital department. Since Redding already has limited police officers, no space at the jail, and realizes the cost of uninsured visits to the emergency department for public drunkenness, we believe Redding needs a sobering center. Ultimately, we believe that a sobering center in Redding would provide another way for our community to take back the spaces we love about Redding and direct people towards the rehabilitative services that they need the most. It is time for a sobering center in Redding. It is time for a better route for our police officers to address substance abuse-related safety issues and concerns. It is time for a fundamental change in the way that we handle public inebriation. It is time we make a lasting change in the broader culture of addiction and addiction recovery. and it's time for a return to a safer, happier, and more accessible Reading. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Patrick McNally. I am a proud citizen of Reading. And I got a short story for you. It actually just happened a couple of weeks ago. It's late at night. It's October 17th, and one of our team members is on a ride-along with the Reading Police Department. And they pull up to one of the local businesses up on Hilltop, and they see 5 individuals with bicycles and backpacks. And when the police car pulls into the parking lot, bam, 2 of them split right away. There's only 3 of them left. And one of them's holding a bicycle that had actually just been reported stolen a few hours before. His name's Christopher. Remember I said he was wearing a backpack? Anybody the least bit curious what was actually in this backpack? Bolt cutters, a Slim Jim, multiple knives, a bump key, and a meth pipe. Well, now he's being arrested, and he begins to open up a little bit, and he confesses to a 15-year addiction to meth. The problem is, on the way down to the Shasta County Jail, sit in the back of this police car, you know what he says? This ain't nothing but a waste of my time. I'm going to be out of here in less than 5 hours. Now, how do you think he knew that? You think this was Christopher's first time to county? No, in fact, this was his 25th booking since 2011. And as predicted, he was out a few hours later, back on the streets of Reading doing who knows what. And I wish I could tell you that that story is a rare occurrence in our city, but it's not. It actually happens a lot. And Christopher's trip through this revolving door at the jail isn't the only strain that's on the system. You see, when somebody like Christopher gets arrested, it takes the officer 2 to 3 hours of time just to book him in. 1 hour in the field and another 1 to 2 hours just to book him. On top of that, there needs to be a second officer on site for backup, sometimes 2 officers. So there's another 1 to 2 hours extra, up to 4 to 5 hours of wasted time on a petty criminal who won't even stand in front of a judge. Our police force tells us there's way too many Christophers running around Reading. And they steal our stuff for their drug habits. They sell it to buy more drugs. And the cycle starts all over again. It's a cycle that needs to stop for us to take back our city. Police professionals, they consider these crimes petty because nobody's hurt and the amounts taken are extremely low. Our officers, they need to attend to the more serious and active crimes, which they face every single day. But let me ask you this question. What if it's your purse stolen out of your car? What if it's your son's bicycle taken right out of your own garage? That doesn't feel petty, does it? According to the Reading Police Department, and this is a key strategic point, most of the nearly 7,000 arrests in 2013 were committed by the same people. Statistics show that 1,135 offenders accounted for 63% of all of the arrests last year. Our local offenders just keep going around the merry-go-round. How many crimes did they commit for which they didn't get caught? Police officers will tell you that many of these offenders are transient, and they're addicted to drugs. Our city shouldn't be like this, guys. We need something to convince these folks to either stop or leave. We propose that Shasta County Superior Court establish its own version of a highly successful program, which has actually taken root across the country. It's a community court system. From Orange County to New York, cities have implemented this type of system and rate them as key to seeing a decrease in the amounts of petty crime, like theft, prostitution, vandalism, and drug abuse. In this court model, a judge sentences low-level offenders to pay back the city through community service. It would make justice visible. When you see these offenders in brightly colored vests and uniforms performing community service projects, those of you familiar with our court system currently understand there's a major backlog of cases right now that's bogging down the system. And this specialized court model is designed to make justice swift. Offenders often begin their sentences within 48 hours of appearing before a judge. Another benefit to the community court model is the opportunity for social services. Community courts often use arrest as a gateway to drug treatment programs and to mental health treatment programs, mentoring, and even job training. In conjunction with the community court model, we propose establishing one or more short-term work release programs. Perhaps these folks can clean up trash from the banks of the river, or maybe from one of the abandoned transient camps around town. You know, what if they could actually build something that adds value and actually boosts to the economy of Reading? Let's make a plan for our criminals to pay back the community by actually making it better. Folks like Christopher, as well as people who get arrested for a bar fight or for prostitution or any other quality of life type of a crime, they're not going to enjoy spending a full day doing manual labor under the direction of a probation officer. We believe that many of these people will either stop committing the crimes and get help if they want the help. But if they're just flat committed to stealing our stuff, maybe they'll leave Reading and go find another town that doesn't make their life quite as uncomfortable. These people need to understand that there's consequences for their actions, and the bottom line is this: we need to bring accountability back to our city. Thank you very much.
Okay, that was a little heavy. How's everybody doing? Yeah? Okay, good. We're 5 in. We're 5 deep right now. We've got 6 to go, and we're going to try and make these a little speedier for you, but they're good. So hang in. No one leave early, okay? Just to review what we've done: reserve police force, neighborhood turnaround, changes in code enforcement, a sobering center, and a community court model. The next section we're going to talk about, we've got 2 solutions in this section, and it's the detention of criminals. And I would like to introduce Joe Commenti to bring you the next solution.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank the Safe City Project for allowing a seasoned person like myself to be up here speaking. I think I'm the only one who wears readers, but I'm not intimidated by that. I'm proud. But seriously, these men and women have done such an incredible job. They have dedicated their time, they've dedicated their resources to finding sustainable, actionable solutions to our city in crisis. We need to take this very, very seriously, as I know you all do. Okay, my presentation starts with a look back to a kinder, gentler Shasta County. I'm going to go back to 1984 when the Shasta County Jail is completed. It has capacity for 237 inmates. And our civic leaders are quite proud because they think this capacity is not only appropriate for the current crime level, but probably appropriate looking a few years into the future. They also think there might be an opportunity to house federal criminals and state criminals and criminals from other counties because of the added capacity, thereby making this a revenue stream. So now we have a source of revenue to continue to support the efforts of law enforcement. Great plan, well executed. Okay, let's fast forward to the Great Recession, one of the most difficult economic times that this nation has faced since the 1930s. No family, no business, no government entity was left unscathed. And the scars from that continue today and will probably continue into the future. Let's fast forward to AB 109, which I can only assume was a legislative lapse. Because how do you let all these criminals out to prey on our community? But it doesn't stop there. Let's fast forward to about 10 days ago and the passing of Prop 47. I can't even begin to wrap my mind around that and the logic behind that. So I'm just going to steal a line from Rick Bassetti and say that Prop 47 is AB 109 on steroids. So now let's fast forward to a jail that can house 380 inmates, but because of a court cap, can only have 343. So we have this facility that was once viewed in a very futuristic fashion as being able to handle an increasing crime level that could actually generate revenue is now crumbling under the weight of this increased criminal activity. The resources are strained. Our criminal justice system is in jeopardy, and we need to do something. I want you to stop and imagine the exhaustion that our police officers experience every day. We put them out on the road. We put them in harm's way to protect us. The crime's increasing, and every time they make an arrest, like Christopher, they know that person's going to be back out on the street before they can complete the paperwork. And imagine the frustration of the sheriff's staff at the jail, who has to consistently and continuously book in prisoners, evaluating who stays and who goes, who's a danger and who's not. Apple does not have an app for that. And they have an app for everything. But I really want you to think about this. I want you to think about the sheer excitement that the bad guy experiences. Because the bad guys look at this situation and they learn and they adapt and they exploit. One thing bad guys are really good at, seizing opportunity. And every time they go through the system, they get a little smarter and they get a little stronger, and they think about upping their trade craft. We're creating a legion of ever-improving bad guys. Okay, so what's the solution? We think we need more beds for bad guys. And honestly, I'm thinking about making that into a bumper sticker. Honk if you think we need more beds for bad guys. I think the noise will be deafening. In 2003, the detention annex could house 66 medium security inmates. And in 2003, because of budget cuts, it was closed. That facility is used today as a patrol headquarters, but it's not a detention facility. I had the opportunity to tour the annex this week with the sheriff, along with a commercial estimator, to take a look at what would it take to upgrade this facility so we could start incarcerating people here. The good thing is the building is in very good shape, and it doesn't require a lot of structural repair. Most of the renovation would be to bring it up to standard so it could house inmates. The sheriff believes, depending on how we lay it out, it could house anywhere from 65 to 80 pre-trial offenders. And that's real important, because he wants a place to put the pre-trial offenders so he can put the bad guys in jail. So think about it, and there should be a chart up there. Our estimator figured it was $1.3 million. We think it'll take about 12 months to build. So now within the next 12 months, we create jobs. That's a good thing. We now have a facility. 48 to 60 months out, the adult rehabilitation center can be built, and that's about 2 blocks away. So now we have facilities that the sheriff and his staff can actually use to incarcerate bad guys. The sheriff believes it'll cost about $2 million a year to staff it. Okay, I know what everybody's saying. Well, we don't have the money. Everybody says we don't have the money. But you know what? We need to find the money. We need to find the money, and we urge our political leaders and we urge our government administrators to provide us with the basic security that government guarantees. That's public safety. We're not saying there's some hidden pot of money that we're not being told about. We're not saying that. But we're saying that we are resourceful people. We're going to look at every possibility. How about, like we do with fire crews, how about an inmate construction crew to help deal with a lot of the perfunctory stuff that we won't have to pay for? And maybe they can earn their keep, because we give them food, we give them shelter, we give them medical treatment, and we give them legal aid. Maybe we could get them to work a little bit for that. It's not going to be easy. We all know it's not going to be easy, but it is possible. Look at the talent we have. Look at the talent of these men and women who put this program together. Look at the talent that we have in this room. And then look at the will. Obviously, we have a will because you're all sitting here. We will find a way. It's just that simple. We will find a way. Action is costly, and it's probably going to be painful. But failure to act, that's devastating, and that is not acceptable. Thank you.
I knew it was going to be hard to follow him. But I'm going to go for it. My name is Corey, and I'm a citizen of Reading. As Joe just described, we have a serious shortage of jail beds in Shasta County that not only prevents us from holding people who continue to choose a lifestyle of crime, but it also removes the foundation of what motivates many criminals to choose rehabilitation. Superior Court Judge Ruggiero, after 2 decades on the bench, told the Record Searchlight last year at his retirement, "Many of those arrested no longer fear consequences and have little motivation to change their ways because they know they will be back on the street." Then he added, "I'm troubled by the lack of consequences." Another wise person said, "When we fail to set boundaries and hold people accountable, we feel used and mistreated. That is why we sometimes attack who they are, which is far more hurtful than addressing a behavior or a choice." Doesn't that feel like what's going on? We see people not being held accountable for their actions, and it does something inside us. I don't want that. We want for our city to be generous and gracious and merciful, but without structure and accountability, these things break down. We want to see the foundation restored so that the rehabilitation can be brought to the lives of these people. Shasta County has an urgent need to house offenders and broaden the systems of rehabilitation. We need a solution that both facilitates low-level offenders to make restitution for their crimes and also nudges them toward a healthy and productive life. So what does a program like this look like, and where do we go to find it? And what I love about this solution is we don't have to look any further than our own county. Many people aren't aware that Shasta County has an inmate camp called Sugar Pine Conservation Camp, which opened in Shasta County in 1988. The California Department of Corrections has already produced a model that works and has been working well for 40 years. It houses 126 inmates. The Sugar Pine Camp model is incredible. The work camp serves to select, train, and equip able-bodied inmates to work hard, meaning 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, to support emergency services and public works projects. Rather than living in a jail, these inmates live in a camp. They work, they learn, doing something meaningful with their skills and abilities. These inmates have the opportunity to apply their energies and skills towards projects that both serve the public and foster personal growth. Our team got the chance to tour the facility, meet the incredible staff, and talk with some of the inmates. We were amazed at the work ethic, the confidence, and self-worth that these inmates had gained through the camp. So we'd like to introduce you to someone who can better describe what we found.
This is Perry. I met Perry when we were up at Sugar Pine. We spent maybe 5 hours touring the facility. We talked with a lot of the staff. Lieutenant Allen is here tonight, the commander of the camp. Would you mind standing, please? Before I have Perry share, I just want to mention quickly, when the staff at Sugar Pine gathered in the morning to start our tour, and they gave us a grand jury tour, they went around the room and talked about how long they'd worked at Sugar Pine Conservation Camp. You know, someone would say, I've worked here for 8 years, and this is where I want to retire. I've worked here for 4 years. This is where I want to work for the rest of my life. The staff at that camp believes in what that camp is doing in the model, in the buy-in that they have with the inmates and the California Department of Corrections and CAL FIRE. It's a beautiful model. We really enjoyed our time there. And Perry is someone that I spent quite a while talking with while we were up there, and I was really impressed with what he's choosing to do with his life and his experience at the camp. So Perry, can you tell us kind of how things were different compared to being in a hard-walled jail, and then you're almost finished with serving your time, but tell me about the transition when you came to Sugar Pine.
Sure. I want to first make it clear that I accepted this invitation because I too think crime is unacceptable, and I'm embarrassed to be standing where I'm at, but grateful for this opportunity to be here and also to be part of the camp program. When I entered the Department of Corrections, I was an embarrassed, distraught father that couldn't expect his kids to respect me when I don't respect myself. And this is my second term. And I never thought with the family and support that I had that I could ever return to a place that I despise. The truth is, I never got an opportunity to come to a camp that allows me to be me. If you can think of an alcoholic that wants to change his life, but has to go to a grocery store and it's mandated that you buy a 12-pack of beer. That's what you do in the prison. You're pretty much mandated by the inmate population to live within their rules. And that's not so in the camp program. You're able to get there and to be you and to be a firefighter first and treated like that. And I can't tell you what it has done for me. When I first arrived and went on my first fire, I was scared to death. It didn't matter what training I went through. I just did not believe I was a firefighter. And I got on that first ride and turned the corner and seen all the support of the residents and the locals that had signs up saying, thank you, we love you. And it was the first time that I actually no longer felt like an inmate. And I put that clothes on, that uniform on, and felt the strongest I've ever felt in my life. But admittedly so, and I've shared this with April, that about 2 hours in, that emotion was about what was carrying me. And it was the hardest work I've ever done. I can't believe firefighters, volunteers, anyone would do this type of work. It is miserable. Doesn't seem fair. I signed up for it, and it completely changed who I am. For a 24-hour shift, I had to dig. To think of my daughter telling me, Dad, don't give up. To remind myself that I promised my mother that I would come home a changed man. And it was then, during the opportunity, during that fire, to dig so deep to realize I can do something. And when I returned after a 3-day fire, I was filthy, I was dirty, and I felt so good. I was part of Sugar Pine. And each morning, we were reminded Monday through Friday that we are men, we are firefighters, that we have a say, that we can talk to the lieutenant, our camp commander, and express our concerns. And we are no longer inmates. And that is the best feeling. And during my time, I promised my mother and my wife that I would come home with a college degree. I had a GED. I graduated with a 4.0 in honors with social science. Thank you. At 40 years old, you could not have told me at the start of this that I would have come out with anything other than the desire to be better. But because of what the camp program gave me, I feel like there's nothing in my way. And I believe that one day I'll be on this side, sitting with you guys, wanting the best for my community, because that's what I believe. My children deserve it, you guys deserve it, and I believe that I finally deserve it.
Wow, I thought it was hard to follow Joe. Sugar Pine is a state facility and houses state, I won't call you an inmate, you're Perry. The Safe City Project proposes the construction of a new work camp that would be run by Shasta County and house Shasta County inmates. This kind of alternative jail is not for hardened violent criminals. These are folks like Perry that want to start their life over. Amazingly, inmates that go through a work camp are half as likely to return to prison as inmates that go through a hard-walled facility. This program provides the opportunity for them to learn responsibility, new jobs, life skills, and position them for success to be healthy citizens. We are presenting a wide variety of solutions tonight, from community programs like Stand Up Reading that cost very little to new multi-million-dollar programs like the one I'm proposing now. It would be naive of us to think real change for real problems would not come at a price. We also realize a solution like this will require a strong commitment and vision from our civic leaders to make happen. We hope they strongly consider making that commitment. Let me tell you why we think this is important. The solution should be one of the least expensive ways for us to get a large number of low-level offenders off our streets, breaking for what is many the cycle of repeat offending. The cost per bed to construct a work camp should be half that of a hard-walled prison. Second, it sends a message to our community that we are serious about accountability. Also, a work camp is a proven model for rehabilitation. And lastly, the result of the work will be focused directly back into our community, our parks, our open spaces, our infrastructure, and our safety. So where do we get started with this solution? April was so moved by what she saw at this camp, she went to meet with somebody. And if you've had a meeting with April, she's pretty passionate. And when she left this meeting, she got a phone call, and this person said, "You can have the land." And a commitment was made for 40 acres in Shasta County. Our hope and expectation is that the state, the Forest Service, the county, the city, the unions, and any other group or agency required to build the work camp and the reopening of the annex facility would help make it a reality and would get on board, would be part of helping us make a way to improve the safety of our community. Cut the red tape and put your agendas and turf aside. We need to bring balance to our criminal justice system, and this is the critical part of the system that desperately needs to be repaired, and it needs to be done in a way that restores the dignity of men like Perry. Perry, thanks for your courage and willingness to share tonight, and we wish you all the success and blessing as you rebuild your life. And I'm proud to be part of a city that's willing to applaud and give honor to a man like that, so thank you.
Good job, Redding. You're doing great. There's another group of people that need our help and wisdom. They need our resources. They need us to come alongside them physically, emotionally, and mentally. We'd like to talk about some treatment options, and I would like to introduce Andrew to present the next Safe City solution.
Good evening. Quite an amazing story, huh? Tonight we've highlighted a number of the challenges set before our community. Many of us are confronted with the reality of these challenges, sometimes on a daily basis. In this next solution, we'd like to explore two specific factors that amplify criminal activity in Reading. The topics are drug addiction and mental health illness. There's a clear link between substance abuse and engagement in criminal activity. Addicted individuals experience a chronic chemical compulsion to use. The habit burns bridges with former relationships, and these individuals end up isolated and entrenched in a drug culture. They become ever more reliant on an escalating level of crime to supply for their habit. At a national level, studies show that 80% of offenders abuse drugs or alcohol, and nearly 50% of the jail and prison inmates are clinically addicted. This same pattern now plagues Reading at an unprecedented level. The hard numbers tell a similar story about mental health illness. For many vulnerable individuals, some hovering around the poverty line, unmet mental health illness needs can prevent them from holding a job and paying rent. They can become targets for exploitation by drug and human traffickers, and some of them tragically turn to criminal activity themselves to survive. Treatment access is limited. According to the California Healthcare Foundation, there are on average 8 psychiatrists per 100,000 people in Shasta County. Persons with mental illness are overrepresented in our jails and prisons as a result, and the pattern is tragically clear. Mental health illness is being forced to be addressed by our police officers and not treated by our medical professionals. Here's where we are today. Those with addiction account for an overwhelming amount of the crime in Reading, and those affected by mental health illness use a disproportionately high level of our policing resources. Both of these conditions create a pathway. It's a downward spiral for those that are stuck in it. But both of these pathways, Reading, can be altered. Addicts can be rehabilitated, and we can do more to treat mental illness. The crime rate and sense of safety in our city can be transformed as a result. The Safe City's next solution is a refocusing of Reading's collective energy and resources. We propose a community-wide effort to rally behind the already successful addiction recovery programs and mental health service providers. Instead of starting something new, we propose supporting the programs that are most successful in our community. These organizations have already done what seemed to be impossible, so we recommend ramping up their efforts with increased funding and support. The positive, life-changing results that they've experienced can be multiplied many times over. So we want to give you a few examples. The Shasta County Addicted Offender Program has an astounding 90% success rate with program participants. Yeah. Drug rehabilitation centers like Visions of the Cross have grown to fill 2 full city blocks with treatment and sober living facilities. Yeah. North Valley Catholic Social Services has been spearheading mental wellness in our community since 1986. They provide counseling services, housing opportunities, and all types of different programs through the Olberg Wellness Center. The Good News Rescue Mission has reported success with 2 out of 3 participants who graduate and maintain sobriety for at least 2 years. Additionally, Simpson University counseling psychology students contribute hundreds of supervised counseling hours to the mentally unwell at the rescue mission in town. And these types of efforts are beginning to address the counselor-client ratio in our city. These programs and others like them are making a difference. We're asking for dollars, and we're asking for more volunteers to ramp up the critical role these organizations play in turning the tide against crime that's linked to addiction and mental illness. There are people in our community who want help. Let's offer them what they need while they're still asking for it. In 2013, the Good News Rescue Mission reported turning away over 500 program applicants due to staffing and budget limitations. We must strike Reading while the iron is still hot. Our plan for a safer city must harness the innovation and leadership of these existing organizations. We want to see these expansions serve exclusively Shasta County residents as well, so that we avoid drawing addicted offenders or the mentally unwell from other regions. Reading, right now our community is face to face with an extensive drug addiction problem and overwhelming unmet mental health illness needs. People stuck in these cycles contribute a disproportionately high level of the crime in Reading, and sadly, they're often repeat offenders. But Reading, within our city, we already possess what we need to redirect criminals stuck in addiction and illness. We can invest in a dramatic reduction in drug abuse and mental illness and rein in drug and property crime in our community as a result. Right now, we have a chance to rally around the things that already work in our community. Right now, we have an opportunity to widen the road to freedom for the many men, women, and young people who are eager to take it. Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to talk about homelessness in our community. Okay, someone's excited. Just to let you know, this is an area that when we first started the project, I had some people, I think some protective people who cared about me said, April, don't talk about homelessness. Don't include that in, in what you're going to address with the Safe City project. And honestly, we listened to the community, and this is a concern, and so we're talking about it tonight. This next solution or presentation that is going to happen, this is the one that includes the documentary video. So if you are in here tonight and you're filming, if you could please respect our wishes to turn the filming off during that documentary portion, we would greatly appreciate it. I would like to introduce you to David.
One of the many highlights of living in Reading is the enjoyment of our scenic parks, trails, and rivers. These resources are highly valuable to those of us who love this city, and as a community, we should naturally want to protect the things that matter to us. Unfortunately, in the last few years, many of our favorite areas no longer feel safe. Recently, a father and daughter took a guided fishing excursion down the Sacramento River. These kinds of tours can attract substantial tourism revenue. This one in particular cost over $200 per ticket. Unfortunately, this special father-daughter moment took a turn for the worse when the boat came alongside a makeshift encampment along the waterway. And lo and behold, one of the illegal campers was bathing in the river and exposed himself right in front of the father-daughter pair as they passed by. Needless to say, the trip was memorable for all the wrong reasons. Incidents like these have an obvious negative impact on our enjoyment and use of our natural resources and on tourism dollars. That father and daughter may never return to Reading, and as a father myself, this isn't the type of experience I'd want to visit again. Incidents like these fly in the face of our city's many effort to draw visitors. I visit Reading, invest significant funding each year to attract tourists to the Reading area, and often these promotions emphasize the beauty of our trails, rivers, and parks. The Fly Shop, for example, is one of the largest tourism draws in our county. Around 3,000 people annually spend their vacation and their money to visit Reading for a guided tour with the Fly Shop. And unless we find a way to address the cost, toll, and negative impact of these encampments, what they take on our public spaces and efforts to attract visitors to Reading, we're in danger of losing more than just tourism dollars. The downside of these types of encampments is pretty clear. In fact, laws already exist to protect the beauty of our public parks and waterways. Now, many of us may not be aware, but it's already illegal to pick a random spot in Reading to set up a makeshift campsite. However, our city has difficulty enforcing the current codes designed to regulate camping. The required tagging and processing regulations that our police force must currently abide by compounds these strains. Simply put, we're falling behind. Now, let's be clear. The strain on our natural resources is not from camping that's allowable in our community. It stems from transient encampments that are already out of compliance with our city's regulations. We face this challenge simply because there's not enough of what's needed to stop it. Now, each of these problems demand our response, and we may not be able to propose a sweeping measure that will reclaim and protect the natural beauty of our public spaces and waterways all at once, but we need to start somewhere. Places like Caldwell Park, South City Park, along with our trails and waterways, like the Sacramento River and Crystal Creek, demand our attention. And it's not just the issue of the safety and integrity of our community and parks. These encampments also present extremely serious concerns for the well-being of those who live in them. And as a part of our research, members of the Safe City Project did in fact visit an illegal encampment in Reading to talk firsthand with some of the people who live there. And tonight, we want to take you, the city of Reading, into the depths of what's hidden around our family parks, businesses, waterways, and neighborhoods. Here's a firsthand look into the type of victimization that occurs within these camps right here in our very own city. Fair note, there is some language, and we did gain permission to film everyone who was interviewed.
Last year, we kind of all spent it down at South City Park.
Okay.
And then he OD'd in a hotel right across from it. And it sucks. This right there, you want to talk life, there you go. That guy likes heroin. That one right there. That was him as a kid. That one liked heroin. And he died.
Yeah.
It sucks because they do it all the time.
Yeah. Is there a lot of drugs around here?
Oh, everywhere. I'm holding my smoke. I smoke weed. I quit drinking a year ago. I quit doing meth a year ago.
Yeah.
Because my daughter needed me, and even though she wasn't ready for me, I was ready for her. God wakes me up every day and says, breathe. And I say, for who? You? Sure. Me? Sure. Bailey? Sure. And when I have that priority in check, I'm happy.
I remember the first day I ever met this girl. I was down at the park, didn't know anybody, wasn't talking to anybody, and she's like, yo, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. Let me take you somewhere, walk with me. And I'm like, okay. I've only been here 2 months. I'm from Muskogee, Oklahoma, born and raised. Then I ended up here, and like this place is so cool and so interesting, yet so chaotic and miserable at the same time. It's sad.
I've been here for about 10 years in Reading. I've been homeless for the last 4 years here in Reading. It's kind of hard out here. It's getting colder, and
people are getting more desperate, and it's harder to keep your belongings. I've actually been robbed 3 times in 2 weeks.
Tara, what led to you becoming homeless? Just leaving home. I miss it. But I was a mother, and now I'm out here and shit, but I think I was meant to be out here. Do you feel safe living here?
I do, because I feel that we all keep an eye out for each other. We all protect each other. You know, maybe not safe as in germs and sickness and things like that. One's very, very good at cooking, which is her. He's very, very good at supplying. He's very, very good at watching the perimeter to see if any danger is coming. Very good hunter, good conversationalist. Me, I talk a lot. Oh, drugs are a problem anywhere. I had a beautiful home, beautiful family, and there's always drugs, there's always alcohol, it's everywhere. It's the best of the best, the worst of the worst. It's pretty much any camp. That's what camping is pretty much about. That people want to hide from themselves, that they don't want to feel the pain, so they mask it with drugs, they mask it with alcohol, they mask it with any kind of addiction they have.
Are there a lot of kids?
Yes, and seeing them having their wheelchairs stolen from them, and you're having to go, all right, this is my job today, this is my thing, you know, this be boom, 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 go look over here, you go over there. It's not right. You know, there's bad people, but there's good people.
While there, we heard stories about severe drug and alcohol abuse, robbery and theft, but perhaps the most disturbing were the stories about slammers. Slammers are individuals who intentionally target kids in these camps, trying to shoot them up with heroin for the first time in the hopes of getting them addicted. Free hits of the illegal drug are given away in order to get people hooked on the drug long term. And it's been reported that these slammers operate unchecked in encampments, working tirelessly to trap new people into a lifestyle of addiction purely for long-term profit. Other disturbing signs of long-term social and environmental decay were obvious. Human and animal feces were readily visible throughout the encampment. The odor and complete lack of sanitation were unnerving. In addition, many of these folks also struggle with significant mental health barriers. Encampments also takes a serious toll on natural and economic resources. Just this year, on September 3rd, the Canyon Fire burned 28 acres and cost approximately $100,000 to control. And this fire started in an encampment here in the city of Redding, adjacent to Clear Creek, across from the Wind River Casino. Now, at the height of this fire, 19 fire engines, 8 aircraft, 3 bulldozers, and 4 inmate fire crews were assigned. Electrical power was interrupted to 6,000 PG&E customers. On September 4th, the Wonder Fire burned about 16 acres. The origin of the fire was determined to be an illegal campsite. That fire caused the I-5 to be shut down and also caused the evacuation of a charter school. We must find a way to stop these types of risks. They're not healthy or safe for anyone, including the adults and children who live in them. These volatile and unsafe encampments are scattered across the city. Here's a map provided by the Redding Police Department. And it's possible there's one near your neighborhood, favorite park, or spot along the river trail. Now tonight, we're proposing a campaign to get the word out about the toll encampments take on our natural resources, on tourism development, and on the people who live in them. We propose a message be sent loud and clear. We're reclaiming our parks, our waterways, and the enjoyment of our natural resources and the dignity of the people who live in them. Thanks to the collaboration of the Good News Rescue Mission, HCC, Shasta County Mental Health, and RPD, we already have a transient outreach program. If folks living in these encampments want help, the transient outreach program can direct them to charities. And it's important to note that our homeless shelter at the Good News Rescue Mission is not full. There's actually room for people, more people, to take shelter there. Sadly and ironically, many choose instead to live in illegal encampments. Now, beyond this, Officer Bob Brannon has made enormous strides in helping to clean up and clear out, that's right, encampments in many of our public areas. And we want to further these efforts with a few specific measures as a part of this campaign. First, we want to highlight a new hub for citizens to directly report transient encampments on the RPD website in order to increase our awareness of encampment locations. So, if you know of an encampment in town, go online and report it. We want to utilize the efforts of the new Reserve Police Force to assist in the processing of encampments and in supervising cleanups so they can occur more often without drawing police officers away from the work of keeping our other city streets and public spaces safe. We also want to ramp up our efforts to obtain consent to enforce cleanups on private properties. We want to see a level of citizen coordination that gives the legal backing to our law enforcement officers and other private citizens to do the clearing out work they've already started. We're also calling for a powerful committee of real estate professionals who will commit to acquiring consents to enforce from absent private property owners who are unknowingly hosting encampments near our most valuable community reserves. and we also need an educational component. Every Reading citizen needs to know that we're reclaiming our city's natural resources. So, ladies and gentlemen, for the sake of our city, its natural beauty and resources, families and businesses, and for the men, women, and children who live in these encampments, often under horrific conditions, it's time to make a statement about encampments. It's time to broadcast publicly that in Reading, there is no free camping.
Good evening. I applaud you for staying here and sticking it through with us. I am one of the last ones, and I am Sadie, and I am a citizen of Reading. I'd like to introduce you to Johnny Williams. Here, she is 19 and homeless. She had left home hitchhiking across the country, seeking an adventure in California. She believed her new lifestyle would be more enticing than her home life and her fast food job. The appeal of making new friends and living in a new town like a hand-to-mouth hippie seemed like a dream. But quickly, her dream became a nightmare. Rather than a peaceful, loving hippie culture she had imagined, she found herself, in her own words, in a culture mostly of heroin junkies, tweakers, and crackheads who steal your stuff the minute you turn around. So much for peace, love, and harmony, huh? After 3 months of living a destitute, homeless life, one of Johnny's friends found a way out. She was able to leave the homeless group to go back home to her family. That night, Johnny decided to make a brave decision. She made a collect call home and discovered startling news. Her dad had been diagnosed with cancer. She spent that night crying in her tent. But the next morning, with new hope and determination, she made the same decision her friend had made just days before. Johnny was ready to go home, and she knew that there was a way. Johnny's story is a true story. It's one of a person's journey from homelessness back to a home made possible in the city of San Francisco through a wonderful program called Homeward Bound. Since its inception in 2005, San Francisco has helped over 8,000 people find their way back home. What if Johnny was your daughter, your niece, or your granddaughter? Perhaps she followed a boyfriend or wanted a nomadic lifestyle like Johnny. Sure, she's made some young and foolish decisions, but what if she was ready to come home? What if your loved one was stuck hundreds, if not thousands of miles away from home with no money, no job, and no social support system? What would you want for her? In Shasta County, we too have these situations. Our social service agencies and nonprofits meet those who are stuck in a cycle of poverty and homelessness here in Reading. But they have a verified support system elsewhere. We need an alternative. We need to provide people a way to get back home. The Safe Cities Project's next solution for Reading, California is to start its own Homeward Bound program within the next 90 days. The Homeward Bound program would be designed to reunite homeless persons living in the Reading area with family and friends. We believe this program would change lives. How does it work? It's an optional program for homeless candidates who have a desire to leave Reading and reconnect with family. If candidates qualify, they are offered a bus ticket and meal vouchers if it's a long trip. Now, what are going to be the requirements to participate in this program? Firstly, candidates must be homeless or in near danger of becoming homeless in Reading, have no outstanding warrants for arrest, have family or friends that Homeward Bound staff can verify as willing and able to provide the candidate a place to stay, are medically stable enough to travel, are sober and able to abstain from alcohol or using other substances en route. Lastly, candidates can only access this program one time. Personal hygiene must be at an acceptable level to travel. A facility to take a shower and clothing can be made available prior to getting on the bus. Each and every individual deserves the right to go home clean and with their dignity restored. But who will facilitate this program? The Safe City Partnership is pleased to announce that the Good News Rescue Mission has already volunteered to facilitate Homeward Bound here in Reading. Reading already has a homeless outreach program in place where the Reading Police Department, Homeless Continuum of Care, the Mission, the Shasta County Mental Health assess the homeless population currently living in these encampments. Adding the Homeward Bound program will just provide one more option. Now, how much will it cost? It's estimated to average only $180 per person. Now, we want to acknowledge that this program will not end all of homelessness in Reading, but it will certainly help end it for some, and some of the most vulnerable. Our best guess, after speaking to local experts, is that around 150 people a year would be candidates for this program. That's 150 people who would otherwise remain here homeless. The Safe City Project loves this solution. How do you feel about it, Reading? Now there's always an ask. What can you do to help?